Welcome to Guardians of the Data. I'm your host, Ward Balzerzak. Each episode will explore the passions, expertise, and real world experiences of security leaders who are helping the future of data security and governance. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centra. To learn more about our AI powered data security platform, please visit centra.io. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Guardians of the Data. My guest today has 15 years of experience in cybersecurity. Over that time, she's delivered numerous cyber program initiatives, managed large organizations of teams, and enhanced capabilities across multiple facets of her security program. She's currently the interim CISO of a healthcare organization. Veena Nagarajan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ward. It's great to meet with you and pleasure to share what we have experienced so far all these years.
I'm glad to have you here. So, Veena, in your professional opinion, what's the biggest challenge that organizations are facing with data security?
I believe, obviously, I have immense experience in healthcare. So, looking from that perspective, it's always the data, which I consider the crown jewel of every organization, what's important to them. And to healthcare, it's always the patient data. And the first and foremost, kind of the responsibility that we have is to ensure that data is safe, and we, keep up with the, confidence and also the trust that the patients have on us that that data is safe. With that in mind, that's going to be the first thing as a healthcare organization, making sure the patient privacy and the data is safe, because it's not just to keep up with the reputation, but it's also regulation centric, right? So we have a lot of regulations that also kind of focus on patient privacy and making sure that data is secure and that data is not lost in any breach. So that's going to be kind of the biggest challenge, especially being in healthcare. Patient privacy is number one for any CISOs or any you know, uh, organization leader.
I like it. I like it. And I believe you're one of my first guests that's solely focused on healthcare. I've had a few others that are healthcare and education. So, with that being in the healthcare industry, patient data, obviously, right? Super important. Uh, what kinds of things are you doing to ensure that that data is secured appropriately?
Great question. As pointed out, we do have processes in place to make sure we assess the risk to the organization. For example, if any new solution is introduced in our environment, we make sure end-to-end process of that solution from ideation, from the initial phase of design. We look into end-to-end architecture of that solution and what data goes in, what data comes out. So it starts off with the analysis of the whole workflow. So we ensure, whatever we do, be it a qualitative assessment, it's data centric, and it kind of gives us the initial inherent risk to the organization. From there, we start, kind of assessing the risk. Then that's more of, a quantitative control. Looking into technical controls, we have kind of built a lot of guardrails to ensure the data is safe. And from a technical standpoint, obviously, we need to ensure we have a good data loss prevention software, right? You need to make sure there's a DLP solution to prevent and protect your organization from any kind of data exfiltrations. That's number one. And especially being in healthcare, that's first and foremost. And with the advent of new technology and machine learning growing in, light speed. So we want to make sure that DLP controls is concentrated even from an AI perspective. So that's a goal, to make sure we have the technical control in place. We call it defense in depth. Probably you've heard it many times. So making sure you have all the layers of controls in place to reduce the attack surface. And that's going to be first and foremost. as I pointed out, you have the process controls, you assess the risk to your organization based on the data, but also you got to make sure you have the technical controls in place. You have the layers of controls, your DLP, and to make sure there is no exfiltration of data. Then you have to make sure you have a good EDR solution, which is an
Mhm.
endpoint detection solution. And what is an endpoint? Endpoint is anything from a server to a workstation to a laptop to your BYOD. So you've got to make sure you have a good EDR solution in place that serves as another layer, right? For example, if anybody tries to download a malware, anybody tries to, click a link, your EDR is going to act and your EDR is going to have high fidelity in detection of these kind of malware. So you don't need to have EDR in place. And there are other layers that we make sure is in place to prevent any kind of data exfiltration.
I like it. I like it. I want to go back to kind of the first step that you mentioned because I feel like that step, a lot of organizations kind of hurry through or maybe even gloss over, and that was you said analysis of workflow, right? Essentially, how and I think me reading into it, how data is probably flowing, going in, created, and all that. So for those listeners that might not have those processes yet, or maybe need to, evolve what they're doing. Any tips or tricks you have for the audience on that?
Sure. I would say before you bring in any solution into the environment, make sure you have a screening questionnaire, like an inherent questionnaire, right? But you don't have to have like 15 or 20 questions. Just have the 10 basic questions, right? Is it internally hosted? Is it externally facing, right? What data is collected to the solution, right? What are the data elements? So being in healthcare, I would say we concentrate on, does it have PHI? Does it have, with PHI is protected health information, which includes all the 80 identifiers of HEPA. And then we check if it has payment card information, which is PCI. And then last, we also check if it has PII, which is personally identifiable information. And each of that, obviously, it concentrates on the user data, the user identity. So everything revolves around a user's identity, which is kind of the key, right? Like anybody who trusts the data, be it an employee who trusts an organization with the data, making sure their employee data because obviously, just like patient information and we get historical information of the patient. When an employee comes to an organization, we get that historical record. We do background checks. This is for any organization, right? So those are key elements. And to keep up with the trust of an employee, trust of a patient. So that's going to be the key. So have your 10 questions of what application interface it has and whether it is externally facing and then what data is collected. So based on the data elements, you can assess how deep dive you have to do the risk assessment, right? If you have to do, if at all somebody says, let's take an example that they collect the entire patient history. So we have additional questions. You can build a logic where you can ask us 10 questions, and if the 10 questions kind of tells you a story that this has much more critical data and also it's externally facing, if it eliminates the risk, then you get asked 10 more additional questions, which would help you to see if the security controls are in place. What is necessary to make sure that the data is secure if it's externally facing, right? Do you have appropriate password controls? Do you have appropriate role-based access? Do you have appropriate endpoint controls in place to ensure the data is safe? Again, it all, like you said, like it all revolves around the data, right? That kind of I would say the nucleus of any organization.
I heard two really good things I'd love to highlight in what you just said there. So first, you really kind of started off in your process bringing it back to the regulatory items that you need to control. So you being in healthcare, obviously, right? PHI is a big one. You mentioned PII as well. PCI, though, obviously, another important one, especially if you're getting payment information. So, would you say one of the first steps an organization should do is identify which regulatory frameworks they need to abide by?
Excellent question and good point, right? Uh, Yes. For example, I believe, a financial industry, the SOX, that would be primary, and PCI uh, would be the primary regulations, right? And obviously, if it's the energy sector, they're going to follow regulations depending on, country laws, depending on, where, the energy is going to be obtained. And then healthcare obviously has I would say a good range of regulation that has to be followed because it's not just HIPAA. If it's a state regulated, then you have to follow the state regulations. If it's a federal regulated, you have to follow the federal regulations, right? Everything plays as part of healthcare. And again, like you said, different industries would kind of hone in their regulation that they have to comply to. And with that, they identify what the crown jewels of our financial industry, definitely financial data of the user, right? And for our energy industry, definitely that trade secret. So that's also there. So identify your crown jewels, identify the regulation that you have to follow, and go have that as a baseline and kind of assess the risk to the organization.
Outstanding, outstanding. And then, the next piece that you said before that I liked was, it goes back to not boiling the ocean. So you mentioned, find 10 questions, right? And, I've personally seen some of these questionnaires out there, and they are very in-depth sometimes, like, 50 to 100 questions. And, I always kinda laugh a little bit when I see those because, where my mind goes is, who the heck is actually filling this out, right? Are you handing it to the user and saying, "Fill this out," because that's not gonna happen with 50 or 100 questions. Is it gonna be the IT department? And is 50 or more actually required? So, I feel like when you were describing your process, it's really a it's funny, we're talking about data security. It's really a data-driven questionnaire, right? Like if somebody answers yes to a certain question, you mentioned publicly exposed. There's probably other questions that then open up that they have to go into as well. Is that kind of the process you're advocating?
Yes, that's the process that I would kind of encourage. And it's funny you say that, right? So throughout my journey, all these 17 years, I've seen those challenges. If you hand over a question to a person or application owner, not every time that person has all the answers because it could be a vendor hosted solution instead of internally developed solution. Then who's going to answer the questionnaire, right? Will you get answers to all the questions? Even it could be 10 questions, right? And it might be a very early stage of the project. And so I do not expect them to have all the answers in the early stage of the project because they probably don't know how many users are going to use it, right? They probably don't know is it going to be one use case or many use case. They probably don't know if it is it should be externally hosted or it is going to be internally used. So of course, everything requires, a requirement gathering phase. That's definitely there. But early stages of project, it's hard to get information, number one. So I would encourage everyone to make sure to do an assessment when you have at least the basic information with you, right? You have the project details, you have the vendor information of how or it is going to be hosted. Otherwise, I would say you would not be able to give all the information. Because take it this way, if they don't have accurate information, and if they just fill out that information with a vague, response, then obviously they're not just putting themselves at risk, they're putting the organization at risk by deploying that solution. So get the necessary information, might not be deep, right? And then answer the questionnaire. And also, you made a absolutely great point. Who should answer the questionnaire? Identify the person to answer the question. Now, you don't have to know all the
Mhm.
detail. Have the vendor on the call. Have you know work through the workflow, work through the use case, and answer the questionnaire according to the needs and requirements of the end user. So that should help you answer the 10 questionnaire. Absolutely. Identify the right person to answer the question. And that should be the first thing in everybody, kind of starting of a project or an initiator.
Something that I've seen missed in that process that you're, because I too have been in those processes before, but something that I always saw missed was almost, for lack of better terms, re-verification, right? So I've seen organizations do this whole process for a POV, right? Proof of value. And they say, great, we're going to buy it. And some organizations go directly from, hey, we did this POV with this questionnaire, which may have been scoped for that POV, directly into production, right? Without going back and saying, all of our answers, are they still accurate? Right? Are they still true? Like the POV, maybe that was hosted externally and now it's internal or vice versa. So do you have any recommendations around more of like a re-verification process for those questionnaires?
Yeah. So as I was walking through the process, right, the first question is going to be give you an inherent risk. Now, as and when the project kind of progresses, you get more details, right? Whether it's external facing, which ports to open, and then the IP addresses, the website, from development to staging to production, and whether it needs the vulnerability scans, what are the servers in place, all the detail that comes with the entire deployment. So as it progresses, you gather all the information, things are getting stood up and things are getting staged. Uh, you add another layer to the data gathering phase. With that said, we with the inherent questionnaire, right? You assess the risk, you get some gaps. So use some gaps and make sure you address and remediate as you develop the project. Now, keep in mind the inherent questionnaire, it's not just to assess the risk. The vendor who comes into your organization doesn't know your security controls, doesn't know your, 8 character or 12 or 16 character passwords, doesn't know your policies that you have in your Azure. So the vendor doesn't know how it's all configured. Now, when they answer the questionnaire or when they help you answer the questionnaire, that's when they learn what is your organization policies. And when it generates the gaps, I would say take those gaps, work with that vendor and towards remediation. In that way, what came as a medium risk could be reduced to a low risk. So as and when you progress, you do one risk assessment at the beginning, and as you remediate these gaps that come out of the initial questionnaire, you do another risk assessment 2 weeks before the deployment. So that gives you like a reassessment, like you said, right? Verifying the gaps are addressed. In that way, the risk could be reduced. In that way, you can also ensure that, you know, uh, it's not just, the inherent risk. Once you remediate, the risk is going to be reduced. What you have is a residual risk. So that risk is going to be lower. And not just that word. I mean, it's not just doing the risk assessment at the beginning and at the end. It has to be ongoing. And how do you do it ongoing? Based on which tier is that application. It is a critical tier, like top tier. And what data does it have? Does it have the entire PHI? Or if it's a bank information, whatever is critical to them. So does it have any of the critical information? Then do the risk assessment, every 6 months or annually based on the criticality that you find out of the risk assessment, be it at the inherent or the later stage. You make sure you have ongoing monitoring in place. For example, in our risk assessment, we collect critical, reports like soft reports, right? I'm sure every organization generate that service organization controls that report. And that report kind of details you how the vendor is securing that environment, how the vendor is, following those controls, being role-based access, be it, kind of password controls, or be it regular monitoring, or be it vulnerability scans, all that comes along to secure the environment. They make sure that is all audited and that's in that SOC report. So we ensure that SOC report is gathered every year, right? As and when we do periodic assessment, we gather those reports to make sure ongoing monitoring is in place, and the third party is keeping up with their security, because that's what we want, right? We want them to be secure as much as we are secure. We are kind of transferring the risk to them. When we go for a third party, we transfer the risk to them, right? And accept the risk that we have handed over to the third party, and they manage our controls securely, our data securely. So that's kind of the process. And I agree with you. As the re-verification, reassessment is important, but also ongoing monitoring of the controls is very important.
It occurs to me as we've been talking here, we talked a lot about, filling out questionnaires, right? Gathering evidence. You mentioned like gathering SOC reports and such. Um, we didn't necessarily talk about what the heck to do with all of that, right? Where to put it, how to store it. Any thoughts or any tips and tricks on that front?
Sure. So we, again, this is where organization, scope comes into place. Do they, I mean, can they manage it in Excel spreadsheet? I know we're not in the age of Excel spreadsheet, but some organization, they don't have, the bandwidth, they don't have the budget to go for an automated solution. So if you have risk assessment in an Excel spreadsheet, make sure you have it in one storage location, like a shared drive or a SharePoint, where you have secure access to it just on need to know, because that has the entire database of your solutions and the risk to the organization. So if it's, a small industry, that goes with spreadsheets, I would recommend that. Now, if in case we're able to kind of automate it, and we're in kind of the generation of everything is automated, we're in a generation of AI. So there are solutions out there that could help you automate the process. So in that way, if it's SaaS solution, if it's that's something that was in the cloud, they help you, have a good repository and good storage, a good kind of a dashboard and a reporting structure where, it does everything, in a periodic basis, and also a good location to have everything stored in their, cloud repository. So it does help. It is based on the organization scale and how much they can automate and how much they can, look for, as far as whether it needs to be a manual solution or an automated solution. If it's a manual solution, make sure you store it in your like a OneDrive or a secured shared location. Or, if it's a SaaS solution, then they should be able to help you with a good repository of all the risk assessment and also keep the automation in place.
I got some shivers when you said Excel spreadsheet. Now, I've been there, I've seen it, right? I think plenty of organizations do that. And, while we all laugh and joke, and I think we all secretly both love and hate Excel, I give plenty of organizations a gold star for that. Like, at least they're doing something, right? That's my big thing. Like, if you're gonna do anything, do something when it comes to what we're talking about.
And I come from the age of Excel, so I still love it. I'll let you know that, right? But I do respect the organization that still follow that. The crux of it is, as long as you follow the process, you have to follow the process. You have to keep it periodic. It comes down to a streamlined process, and you can automate solution as much as you want. What if the automation doesn't work, right? What if the automation doesn't do a job? So even if you have automation, you still need to have a human in the loop. You still need to make sure those are done regularly. You still need to pull the reports. You still need to show the audit that those are done regularly, right? Everything has to be in place. So it doesn't matter if it's manual or automatic. What matters is, do you have it streamlined? Do you follow it regularly? Do you have continuous monitoring in place? That is the key because that is what they look for. And if it's automated and if it fails to do the periodic assessment on time, then that becomes a finding, right? If it's manual and they still do it on time, then there's no finding. So it does not matter on the process, it matters on keeping it regular and consistent. That's what it matters.
I totally agree, and I think the last piece, and you mentioned it in your initial answer, so we're tying this all back together. It goes from doing all of this analysis, right? Doing all these questionnaires and follow-up and, architecting a solution, and then there's finally actually doing something with that information. Right, I think that's another key too. I worked for an organization when they were kind of building out this process we're referring to, and they built a really good process. It was a really good questionnaire. It came out with a risk score. It came out with a good thing that each application had a risk score and whatnot. And I remember asking, and it felt like I was asking a taboo question, but I remember asking, okay, what are we doing with this? What is anybody doing with this? Because we created this awesome solution, um, but there was nothing at the end, right? There's no actual output. So, to tie it all together, Veena, you mentioned doing the analysis, then finally having defense in depth, right? Having controls. So, do you have any thoughts on taking all that goodness we just talked about, the questionnaire, the information, all of that collaboration, to finally, having rubber meet road with, technical control implementation.
Sure. And as I shared with you, reducing the from an organization perspective, one should always think about reducing the attack surface. It's no longer a question of, hey, whether it's going to, happen to you. The thought process should be, what if it happens to me? How do you be breach ready, right? How do you ensure you have the controls in place? Because when it happens, if it happens, what do you do, right? So I would recommend for any organization to make sure be consistent on your tabletop exercise. Be consistent in doing your pen test. Be consistent in doing all your scans. So make sure you're more proactive, right? We're talking about these days, we're talking about shifting left, right? We're talking about being more proactive and doing continuous pen testing, where possible to make sure every organization is secure. So in the age of AI, where we're talking about, uh, things getting kind of assessed, things getting deployed in machine speed, we got to get ahead of the game. We got to make sure the layers of security that's built is also going to the next level and keeping up with the pace of the technology. And with that, I know it's not easy. It's easy said and done because at one point there were more security solutions than at the time things were getting developed, right? But now that's not the
Mhm.
case. The speed at which technology solutions are developed are much more faster than the speed of trying to secure it. So it's no longer like the volume. It's about what's the most risk, what's the riskiest to the organization, what are the factors to look in to assess that risk, right? And which one to address first. It comes down to that. So with that in mind, as you build your layers of security, as you work towards your defense in depth, make sure all your, what's your first entry point? What's the day in, day out? It's an email. Make sure your email flow is secure, because, and I know it's being talked about in many, I'm sure you've heard it a lot. It's always at one click, right? It might be the same old story, but it at the end of the day, it comes to the human factor. At the end of the day, it's always a human. It always takes that one click for that human to expose the organization. So make sure you have a good email security solutions that is able to detect any kind of malware, any kind of phishing link, or any kind of campaign that bad actors trying to launch at your organization. Because those solutions use intelligence, use automation to have these kind of indicators in the solution that's already baked in real time. They update in real time, and they are able to detect it even before that particular email lands in the end user inbox. So have a secure email solution as one layer. That's your front door, right? For anybody in the organization. And I would say as you use your endpoint, which I kind of shared with you, which could be your mobile, which could be your laptop, which could be your desktop, your workstation. So make sure that particular system is secure with appropriate controls in place. Make sure you have a EDR solution, which is your endpoint detection response. You have a lot of solutions, next generation EDR that helps you not only with the solution, but they also provide managed care, managed services that helps you with the resources. Make sure you have a good EDR that if in case if it sees something, it sends alerts and actions are taken immediately, right? Good, good EDR in place, good DLP solution in place. And, we're in an age of zero trust, right? So you have a lot of zero trust solutions out in the market, which is faster, which has higher fidelity in detecting any kind of threat. So make sure you identify the right solution, do the right POCs, do the right, bake off to make sure which solution is best for your organization that is able to detect with highest fidelity and able to give you the result that could protect your organization, because you need to kind of build those layers from a perimeter standpoint where the data goes in and out in your organization. You need to have the DLP, you need to have the EDR, you need to have the network detection too. It's not just EDR, you do have an NDR, right? A network detection response that listens to your network. Like data is going back and forth in your network. It is, each packet of data is going back and forth, and that needs to be inspected too. So make sure to have those layers of control. I know I used quite a lot of buzzwords, but nothing to be scared about. These are controls that are out in the market. You just have to look through those layers of controls, make sure those layers of controls are in place, then that is going to take care of, your technical controls and give you the difference in depth that is required.
Completely agree. And Vina, we covered a lot of ground here. So I'm curious, you've been in the industry for a while. You're currently an interim CISO. What was your journey? How did you get to where you are today?
Thanks for asking that. So it's a quite a journey, I would say, and I'm from India, so I'm very proud of my country. So it's been 21 years since I came from India, and I would say, like everyone says, United States is a land of opportunity, and I came with a dream here, and I would say, my dream, I'm still dreaming, but it has been fulfilled dream. And I started my master's here in Houston. I completed my master's in information security and management. That was my focus. And I landed in healthcare even before I graduated. So it was a great opportunity in a great institution, which they opened the doors for me. And I do appreciate that, right? Obviously, when coming into an environment from a different country, uh, you're not accustomed to the culture, you're not accustomed to working in a different environment. It did give me a good platform, the confidence that I need, and the work environment that I need. So started off with that organization and learned through my journey. and I had great mentors in my journey. And I would say look for mentors through your journey. They are the one who's going to shape your career, who's going to provide their experiences that you could learn a lot from them, right? As they coach you, as they train you, that that experiences will go a long way. And also make sure you learn from them. I mean, like there was one leader that told me in my career, as you grow, make sure you fill your tool set, right? You learn a lot, and you might learn different organization, different places, different scope. Make sure you fill your tool set and your knowledge, because that's kind of something that's going to stay. Titles don't matter, roles don't matter, but what you gain and the knowledge, that's something that's going to stay forever. And that's something that you can instill on others. So I started my journey with great mentors who shaped my career. And again, then I moved on to a different organization, and that also opened doors with a lot of great mentors. And here I am. I started off as an senior analyst and moved as an architect. And now I serve as an interim CISO to a great organization. And thankful to my mentors who have coached me and also shaped my career. And I would say, that my American dream is getting fulfilled. And I'm still learning, right? There's no stop to learning. So, I would say, anybody who wants to choose a career in cybersecurity, be open to learning. Do not get stuck to titles or anything, because if you get stuck to that, you will never learn, right? Growth is never going to be there if you just, stick to a role or like think about a title. It's more of being a leader, trying to grow as a leader, where you have to make sure, uh, doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity, if you're placed anywhere, you should be able to lead a group of people, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people, and it's all about the trust you develop with them. It's all about the transparency that you share with them, and it's all about the teamwork. It's how best your team is, how best you build the trust with them and help them work as a team and create a safe environment where they can grow with creativity and grow as a person. And I always say that, right? Like a good leader, when someone goes on a vacation, the team should be able to be self sufficient and manage on their own. You have to make sure you create leaders. And if in case one day you're not there, there should be someone in the team who could just stand up and take the team and run with it. That's a sign of a good leader, right? So make sure you learn, have a mindset to learn, and also make sure you have a mindset to be flexible and work with people. So that would take long ways. Doesn't matter which scope you are, with cybersecurity or data analytics or different area, right? That's what I would recommend.
Great, great insight. So I'm curious, if you could go back in time, we'll say 15 years. If you go back 15 years, knowing what you know today, is there any advice you'd give a younger self?
I would say be more open, be more confident, right? Um, and there are a lot of people who want to kind of mentor you, who want to coach you through your career, right? Early in my career, obviously, I was a little intimidated with the environment, and it took some time for me to gain confidence to work in environment that is different from what I have been, right? Uh, so I would say be more confident, don't be afraid to ask questions. I would say that, right? If anybody stops you, never be afraid to ask questions. No question is simple. No question is, kind of silly. Be confident, ask question, ask the right question, be open to learning. I will say that. And uh, initially I would question myself, should I ask the question? Is it the right thing to ask? That was I'm talking 20 years ago. It's no longer the case. I'm pretty, extrovert, but even within me, there were times when I would question, should I ask this question? This is a leader, like, few grades above me. Is it appropriate to ask questions? So don't be afraid, be confident, and reach out to people. Never hesitate to reach out to people. There are people out there who want to help you, right? They have been in the same journey as you. So they will definitely help you to grow. And that's kind of what I would say. Um, but I would say I've learned a lot through my career, and as and when I have grown, in every step of my way, that has been failures. I would say never be afraid of any failures, because there's no leader, who had a perfect career, who had a perfect, kind of successes in their career. You have to fail to learn. Never be afraid to fail. And again, even if you fail, don't think the sky is falling, right? Uh, make sure you stand up, make sure you try, make sure you go ahead. So that's kind of what you have to have in you. It's all about you. And that's what I've learned too. Uh, it's That might be outside influences, there might be politics, there might be everything, all the noise. Learn to filter the noise. So you have to learn to filter the noise, learn to ask the right question, be bold, be brave. Always understand there are people out there who also look out for you, who's there to help, who's there to mentor you. So reach out.
Great tips. Veena, if folks want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
They can always ping me in LinkedIn, and also, connect with me. I'm there to help people, mentor people, share my experiences, and help them to grow too. Here to help. Here's what I would say, right? This country and different organizations have given a lot to me, right? I strongly believe in paying it forward. And if there's any way that I can pay it forward, I would do it without hesitation. I would do it. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you're probably gonna get an influx of connection requests, so there you go. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining today. This has been a great episode.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day, and good luck in everyone's career and endeavor. Thank you so much.
And big thank you to the audience. Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Please tell others in your network to follow and listen. This has been another exciting episode of Guardians of the Data. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Guardians of the Data. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes and more, visit guardiansofthedata.show. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centra. To see how we help organizations discover and classify all of their data accurately and automatically while quickly achieving petabyte-scale data protection without the fuss, please visit centra.io. Catch you next time.